Right, Mr. Wimberley, P15 2011 for the Independent Electoral Commission, which was overwhelmingly adopted. Your proposition was overwhelmingly adopted, something in the region of 29-18. What's happened to it? What's left of it?
Well, good question. I brought it as it was a lot of work, and I was quite surprised actually we got it through with such a big majority. But it essentially was to create a fair voting system for Jersey people. And I hedged it round with protection so that it would really do the job. It was going to be independent, it wouldn't have any states members on it. Well, I assumed that, I mean independent, I just wrote it in automatically, independent, as one does. I wrote in that the Commission should be able to look at why you have voting systems. Now, one of the main functions of a voting system is so that people can vote a government in or out.
Yeah.
That's what you do anywhere else, but not in Jersey. There's no link between what the voter does in the voting booth and what actually happens. Who gets to be ministers? So that's the second point about what the Commission was about. And the third thing I wrote into it was that there should be expertise available to the Commission on tap, built in, because otherwise the chances are that people will either see that their vested interests have been at work, or that they will be at work, one or the other. Because in Jersey, and we're seeing this discussion about, but people whoever joins the Commission will have predetermined views.
Yeah.
But of course they will. You and I have got views on who should be in or out of the states and how the voting system should work. I mean, anybody with an interest in politics is going to have those views. So why you have the experts is to give advice here and there as the process unrolls, to say...
But these experts wouldn't be sitting on the Commission,
absolutely not.
No.
My original proposal, they were going to be on the Commission, because I just wrote them in. Now I think it's probably better if they're not on the Commission, but sit as an independent panel. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that we have independent experts. And so they can say, you're doing this a bit funny, why are you doing that like that? Or we agree with that, that's a good way of doing it. Or had you thought, if you ask a question like that, that's a leading question. And then that's all in the public domain, that advice, and the response of the Commission is on the public record, so we can all see that it's fair and above board.
Yeah.
We haven't got that now.
What have we got now?
What have we got now? They've taken out all three things. They've taken out the independents. They've destroyed the independents by putting states members on there. And not only have they put states members on there, they put a majority of states members on there. So the states members now control what happens on the Commission. They control how it does its work. So if they decide to do a roadshow, to go around the parish halls with meetings called by the constables, if they decide to do that, that's what they'll do. And the politicians will decide that. And you can see where that would go. Yeah. So they've destroyed that. They've destroyed the terms of reference. So they've removed any chance that the Commission can look at whether you or I have a say in who gets to govern us. That's pretty extraordinary in an electoral commission. And they have taken away the independent experts. So they have basically, I started off with the image they've chucked a bomb into the middle of the electoral commission, which leads you to the phrase democracy terrorists. And I actually think that that's what they are.
And whose fault is all this then?
Whose fault isn't it? Well, it's funny, you see, democracy terrorism, when you use the word terrorism, it sounds like bombs and guns and the pictures on the telly about Homs and so on, and we have that image. But actually, it's all done very quietly and in a civilised way in Jersey. Up pops Sir Philip gets elected onto the PPC, Privileges and Procedures Committee, along with enough other people to make sure that he gets his way.
Yeah.
So quietly behind, basically behind the scenes, not many people go to PPC meetings, although they are public now, but not many people go to them. So basically, it was nobbled from inside PPC. So you get these arguments, you get these arguments, if we have states members on the Commission, the results will be more acceptable to the states. I beg your pardon, it's not a question of whether it's acceptable to the states, it's a question of whether it's acceptable to the public of Jersey. But, so these funny arguments are used to make sure that the Commission is destroyed. But it's all done in committee.
Well, this is, again, because it's quite ironic, isn't it, that on the Commission with Sir Philip Ballash is Constable Juliet Galashaw.
Yes.
Who from a rotten borough,
yes.
who never faced an election.
Yes. That's not true. She was elected the first time round.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm saying, sorry, previously,
Yes.
the last time she didn't face an election.
No.
And we've got, what's his name?
James Baker.
James Baker, who hasn't uttered a single word that we're aware of in the States. The son of a constable.
Yeah.
So we've got a constable, the son of a constable, and Sir Philip Banash wants to keep the constables in the
Yes.
States. And they're running this electoral commission.
And they're running this independent electoral commission. It's very strange. And we know that Juliet, when she was chairman of PPC and brought the original proposals for reform in 2009, what was her one of her guiding principles about electoral reform was the constables must stay in the States.
Bearing in mind...
Quite extraordinary. It's not a guiding principle, it's just one of the ways that it might be.
Well, there's a lot of us, I think they're the biggest block on democracy there is, the constables, but that's for another day. What was I going to say there? Because what isn't, again, irony as it was, didn't Constable Juliet Galashaw vote against a electoral commission?
She did.
And now she's sitting on one.
Yes.
I mean, how? There's not really. What can we say?
Well, I mean, you've got a chairman of the Electoral Commission who said publicly on the hustings. In fact, I think it was in his written manifesto that there is no. I think he said it at the hustings that there is no need for a commission. So you've got people who basically fundamentally disagree with the idea that you should go to the public and really, really find out what would work and use experts to help you to find out what would work and what would make democracy better. You've got people who don't believe in that, and they're on the commission. So they actually, what they do believe in is a certain version, which is keep the constables in. Now, the point about that is that the idea, what Sir Philip says is, we must establish consensus, we must get everyone to agree, this must be nice and apple pie for everybody. But they've gone the way of creating the maximum amount of division. There's you and me and lots of people like us who think this is so flawed that anything that comes out of it can't be worth the paper it's written on. And there's other people who are cheering from the sidelines, So they've created an island which is totally at loggerheads with itself, instead of creating consensus, which is what they should, which is what my original proposition set out to do, was to create a process that was so robust that even those who didn't agree with what came out of it, assuming that what came out of it got half the votes, 50% of the referendum, that the others would at least say, okay, fair cop, it was fairly done. We will go along with it. But they've created the opposite. They've created absolute division in the island.
So this is obviously, it's brought you out of retirement, so to speak.
Unfortunately, yes.
But, why are you bothering? Because as far as our state media are concerned, the biggest problems in Jersey is unemployment,
Exactly.
is the LVCR, is this doesn't seem to be any type of a priority with Jersey state media.
No, exactly. They in fact they covered it up when it was actually being debated. It suddenly wasn't on the front page. Something else was. So the reason that I've taken this so seriously is that this is about democracy. It's about how the island is governed and who gets into the states. That's why it's of fundamental importance. And anyone who says, oh no, this isn't the real issue, the others are the real issues, they need to think again. They really need to think again. And I give two examples. One is that the people who've been in, three examples, the people who've been in the States so far, the way we've been governed so far has led to three things. One is the population going up and up and up, totally out of control. But deliberately, in my view, it's gone up because it suits certain people, even though it's the opposite of what most people want. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that we haven't had a police authority for 12 years since it was first proposed, and everybody knows it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't happen.
Look what they've done to Graham Power.
And that's another issue. And the third example is at Belazan. We had the filthiest incinerator in Europe. We were poisoning our own people, and what did the states do about it to clean it up? Nothing. And they did nothing because they have an ideology which says you mustn't spend money, you must spend as little money as possible, even if it harms your own people. And that gets to the heart of it, and that's the kind of government we've got. And there I was trying to say, okay, let's have a government that represents the interests of the people better. What do? They kill it. They strangle it.
Strong words. Now, because I wanted to also, because we had a parish assembly in St Clements, there was a parish assembly in St Helier to debate actually Deputy Royal Aricier's amendment, to basically keep your P15 going.
Yeah.
Senator Balash, who said, and there's only 3 people out of everybody who voted in favour of Senator Balash, whereas I think there's 56, 57 voted against, shall we say, Senator Balash, if you like.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, Senator Balash keeps telling us he wants to engage the public, he wants to get consultation with the public. He didn't turn up to one of these parish assemblies.
And more importantly, the Jersey Rights Association, who, if you like, I mean, parish assemblies, you know, I don't even believe they're particularly democratic, but they are a mechanism for getting a debate going. But the JRA wanted to have a debate in public, in the town hall, between myself, Senator Balash, and 1 or 2 other worthies who knew something about electoral reform. I was quite happy to turn up and debate this on a public platform with Senator Balash. He was not willing to come to a public platform and debate it with me in front of the public. Now, here's a guy who says, you know, I want to engage with the public.
Public consultation.
Where is he? Where is he when it's him and me on a public platform arranged by a third party, an independent third party? He's in hiding. Why? And to me, that sums up this whole thing. You know, we're talking about democracy and openness and transparency. When it comes to it, sorry mate, we don't want to talk about this in public.
Which feeds back into what you were saying earlier. It's not what the public want, it's what the states want.
Exactly. And the fact that he wasn't prepared to debate it in public is a very good indicator for where this is all going to go.
Well, which brings me on to, if you like, the word feudalism.
Yes.
That doesn't get mentioned by our state media.
No.
It's never mentioned anywhere. But here we had William Balash, Deputy Bailiff William Balash, chairing a state's sitting that inevitably got his brother, Philip Balash, elected to sit on this electoral commission. In fact, he ruled that he couldn't even mention Senator Balash's name. William Balash did, you know, which was a big... How do you think this looks to the outside? Let's take ourselves out of the Jersey bubble.
Yeah.
How do you think this looks to the outside world? To me, it looks just pure and utter feudalism.
Well, it's an interesting point. I mean, I must say, when I read I was away from the island at the time the debate happened, which was a good thing or a bad thing. But when I read the report in the paper, I saw William Balash, you know, presided the sitting, and I thought, that's a bit odd. You know, it's a bit odd because his brother is in the frame. You know, he's the centre of this debate, and I just sort of just let it pass, really. But when you mention it, you think there's something badly wrong there. You know, he should have recused himself. Somebody else should have. This is an important debate.
Perception, isn't it?
So it's perception. So that's one aspect. The other, what makes me laugh, is conflicts of interest. You know, you've got Sir Philip on PPC arguing for what will, privileges and procedures, arguing for what will eventually put him as chairman of the Electoral Commission against what the original proposal was. Does he vote on that? You bet he does. Is there a conflict of interest? Yes. Is he supposed to vote on things where he has a conflict of interest within PPC? No. There is no precedent, apparently. I'm told, I don't know, but apparently the normal thing is that if you are involved personally in a decision by PPC, and after all, they're looking after standards in the states, aren't they?
Yeah.
The normal thing is to say, I'll pull out of this, it concerns me. Yeah. Did he pull out? No. How much was the voting majority? 1. So, you know, right at the beginning, you've got this absolute blindness about what is proper and what is not proper.
So you've quite possibly controversially said you're encouraging islanders not to not to take part in this electoral commission, not to make submissions.
Well, certainly not to sit on it. What I'm saying is that anyone who wants to protect their reputation should stay well clear of this, because it's a whitewash. And if they try to, I did think of standing for myself. You know, I was approached by people to say you should be on this commission. In other words, you could try and save the damn thing from being nobbled. Well, frankly, you know, that's 6 months of my life arguing against a built-in majority who are going to overrule me at every turn, and in the end I would walk out. You know, in the end there would be an issue so big, but we've got to do this. Oh no, we're not going to do this, but we've got to do this. This is the only fair way. No, we're not going to do that. So, you know, I couldn't. When I saw how the chips were down, I saw there was no point. Now, I think of myself as a person of integrity, and I would say to anyone of integrity, stay well clear of this.
Don't legitimise it. Is that what you're saying?
Don't legitimise it, yeah. Don't legitimise it. Now, when it comes to should people make submissions, I haven't thought that one through yet, because I think there might be a case for writing to them and saying you should do this, this, this and this. So they can't turn around later and say, well, nobody told us. You know, nobody said that we shouldn't have public meetings in the parish halls, we should have citizens' juries, or we should have proper ways of consulting people. You know, nobody told us. So I think there might be a case for just writing to them and saying this is how it should go. But I've already told PPC. You know, I wrote a 6-page memo to this PPC, and it was dealt with in 6 words. This is noted, gentlemen, isn't it? That's it.
And that's it.
That's it. So that's how much you get for 2 days' work. And I'm not sure I want to do that for months and months, you know. And I wrote to the original PPC, and I got 1 paragraph in their report, and they didn't really, you know, it's gone nowhere. That wasn't even read by the present PPC. And it's all in there, how it should go.
So really, it looks like it's all just a done deal, isn't it?
It looks... There's no way you can escape the conclusion that it's going to go one way. Now, if out of some magical hat they go another way, you know, maybe. But as far as I can see, it's going to go, you know, I think somebody said the report's been written already. You know, there's going to be constables, there's going to be a reduced number of deputies, and they'll sort of, seats on Titanic, you know, they'll arrange the seats of the deputies to be a little bit fairer. That's all that's going to happen. They won't consider any of the fundamental issues because they don't. Well, they've excluded them from the terms of reference, so they can't consider the fundamental issues. You see, the mind's mind-boggling. I can see your mind, you know. You're just going, how can they do this? How can they take the main issues and say, we're not going to talk about those?
Well, it is mind-boggling.
And how can they say, experts, this is complicated. In some areas, like voting systems, go on Wikipedia, type in voting systems Wikipedia, see what you get. There's a long article, and if by the end of it your brain isn't reeling, you know, it's difficult. So fair enough, you want to get to a good, fair voting system. And in Jersey, we've got the wonderful advantage, there's 90,000 of us, we govern ourselves. We could get this right. But instead, we're going to get it wrong. You know, and because they don't want to get it. The only interpretation of the way they have systematically taken it apart is there's something fishy going on. You know, they didn't want it to be democratic.
So, in a sentence, as you said in your press release and in your letter to the JEP, is where we get to see.
Well, the letter to the public. It's an open letter. Yeah, anyone can publish it. Yeah.
Okay. It's RIP democracy strangled at birth.
That's what I said. Yeah, that's what I said. I think there's a dimension here which I'd like to say, I suppose, which, you know, you asked why I came out of retirement. You know,
yeah.
Why I'm so concerned about this issue. And it goes beyond Jersey. I've sort of been wrestling with it. You know, why does it bother me so much, this thing about democracy, and what's happening here? You know, what's really happening? Is it that there's some people who don't want democracy, don't want the public's interests to be protected and advanced by their government? And my mind goes to a guy called Muhammad Yunus, he's a Nobel Prize winner, who founded the idea of microfinance. You might have heard of him. Grameen Bank, Bangladesh. And he said, poor people need credit. The banks won't lend to poor people because they're poor. That's what banks do. They lend to people who can repay, in quotes. They don't lend to people who are, you know, in their view, a bad risk. So he set up a bank in Bangladesh which would consciously lend to poor people. And he set it up so that the poor people would be in circles, so they would like validate each other's loans and make sure that everybody played by the board, but played fair and repay their loans. He's got almost 100% repayment record. He's got 8 million people who've taken out small loans, started businesses, and all the rest of it. That's development from the bottom. It's fantastic. It's democracy, it's development from the bottom. It's what everybody says they want. So what happens? His idea gets trashed by the economic establishment, who wheel out people who say, oh, there's problems with microfinance. What they do is they take other areas, not Bangladesh, where the big boys have muscled in on microfinance to make money out of it, which was not his original idea. So they trash it academically, and the government of Bangladesh has managed to get him, someone has got him off the board of his own bank, stopped him being the chief executive officer. Now, to me, that connects with this. You've got a guy who's good-hearted, who wants to make it work for people at the bottom, who wants to give them credit, who wants the whole thing to take off. And what happens? They
sabotage.
arrange things to sabotage it. And that's what's happening here. And that's why I'm so angry.